Sweden's investigation into the Nordstream gas leak confirms the pipelines were sabotaged after traces of explosives were found.
North Korea test fires its second intercontinental ballistic missile in a month.
Qatar bans the sale of alcoholic drinks at its football stadiums, just days before the FIFA World Cup gets underway.
The blasts that caused leaks of gas from the Nord Stream pipelines were an act of sabotage. That's the finding of a preliminary investigation by Swedish prosecutors. In September, 4 explosions ripped through pipelines 1 and 2, sending flows of gas to the surface of the Baltic Sea. It happened in international waters, but in the economic interest zones of Sweden and Denmark. The two countries increased naval patrols in the area and launched parallel investigations. The 2 pipelines were out of service at the time, but still contained quantities of gas. The pipelines through which Europe gets much of its gas has been at the centre of tensions between Russia and the West. Moscow's decision to stop gas supplies was allegedly in response to EU sanctions over its invasion of Ukraine.
Around 10 million people in Ukraine are without electricity just as winter sets in. The fresh wave of intense Russian bombardments have targeted crucial power supplies and residential areas. It's reported that at least 7 people were killed. The consequences of another missile attack against Ukraine continues all day. Again, there have been emergency power outages in addition to planned ones. As of now, more than 10 million Ukrainians are without electricity. With dropping temperatures and snow falling in Kyiv, residents are now living without heating. However, some in the capital continue to be defiant despite the challenging situation. I know that the power of belief in us is so strong that we will survive it. We will overcome it. We can feel it. It's foolish to deny that we can't feel it, and it's foolish to deny threats that the colder it will get, the greater the risks that the winter in Kyiv will be. To put it mildly, it's difficult, but there's no doubt we will overcome it. The Kremlin blames the suffering of civilians on Kyiv's refusal to negotiate. Over in Kherson, residents are slowly adjusting to their new lives without the Russian military. We managed to carry on for many months, almost 9 months. I think we will live through the winter. The main thing is to get the electricity back. Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency has passed a 3rd resolution calling on the Kremlin to immediately cease all actions at the Ukrainian nuclear facilities. Strikes have fallen close to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant several times since February, with Russia and Ukraine blaming each other.
Russian sources and proxy officials are flagrantly touting the forced adoption of Ukrainian children into Russian families. The Institute for the Study of War says prominent Russian male bloggers began circulating a multi-part documentary series featuring several Ukrainian children from Donbas after being adopted into Russian families. The documentary series claims that Russian officials have what they called evacuated over 150,000 children from Donbas in 2022 alone. Russian Federation Commissioner for Children's Rights has continually advocated for deportations and adoptions of Ukrainian children, and herself adopted a child from Mariupol. Forced adoption programs and the deportation of children under the guise of vacation and rehabilitation schemes likely form the backbone of a massive Russian depopulation campaign. According to Ukraine's National Information Bureau, over 11,200 children have been deported. Now, this is based on calls from parents who are looking for their children, but the exact number is very difficult to track. The U.S. Secretary of State said in July, quote, estimates from a variety of sources, including the Russian government, indicate that Russian authorities have interrogated, detained and forcibly deported up to 1.6 million Ukrainian citizens, including 260,000 children from their homes to Russia, often to isolated regions in the Far East. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said in the summer that in total 2 million Ukrainians have been deported to Russia. And that number does not include the consequences of the successful counteroffensive operations of Ukrainian forces in the regions of Kharkiv and Kherson this autumn.
North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un is flexing his military muscle, firing a second intercontinental ballistic missile in a month today. Nervous travellers in Japan followed news reports that the missile had landed in its waters west of Hokkaido. But Japan's defence minister warned the trajectory showed a missile of this sort could hit any target in the USA, possibly with a nuclear warhead.
Thank you so much.
US Vice President Kamala Harris discussed the implications of the launch at a scheduled summit in Bangkok with leaders of South Korea, Japan, Australia and New Zealand.
The US government has said that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, should be granted immunity over the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Washington says this is due to bin Salman being elevated to Prime Minister and therefore head of government. However, the CIA has previously implicated bin Salman in the murder. While on the campaign trail, now President Joe Biden also talked of punishing Saudi Arabia for the murder and making it a pariah. But this was in the past. In response, the ex-fiancé of Khashoggi called the change in Biden's position on bin Salman beyond ironic. The request from the government is non-binding, and ultimately an American judge will decide whether to grant bin Salman immunity. But many have seen the move as part of a wider US effort to warm relations between the two countries. Amid high petrol prices, the strategic importance of the oil-rich nation has increased for America.
COP27 is giving itself one last chance to avoid the abyss of a planetary failure. One more day to unblock the financing by rich countries of the climate damage reparation fund demanded by developing countries. A promise of $100 billion a year that has not materialized.
Time is not on our side. Dear friends, I remain committed to bringing this conference to a close tomorrow in an orderly manner, with the adoption of a series of consensus decisions that will be comprehensive, ambitious, and balanced.
In a last-minute effort, the EU's accepted the principle of the reparation fund on condition that it serves the most vulnerable countries and that countries such as China contribute.
I have to say this is our final offer. This is where the member states can find an agreement, and I have to thank all of them for the courage to go this far, but this is it.
Thank you.
Frantic behind-the-scenes negotiations mark the extension of a climate summit with many loose threads, and whose most ambitious objective is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels.
With the opening game of this year's World Cup just days away, Qatar has banned the sale of beer and other alcoholic drinks at its football stadiums. It's a major U-turn at the 11th hour on an agreement with FIFA that fans would be allowed to drink during matches. Now fans will only be able to purchase non-alcoholic beverages at the 8 venues hosting games. Supporters will still be free to enjoy the atmosphere with a beer in hand at fan zones and other special hospitality areas. But many visitors will likely still be disappointed by the sudden change of heart from Qatari authorities. FIFA says it agreed to the last-minute ban after discussions with the hosts.
Twitter has been forced to temporarily close its offices to staff as an internal crisis comes to head. Hundreds more employees have left the company after rejecting an ultimatum from owner Elon Musk. It called on staff to be prepared to work long hours at high intensity or leave the company. With key personnel, including engineers, quitting, the social media giant's ability to continue operations has been threatened. Twitter users have also begun dropping the app, with many posting farewell messages and closing their accounts. Hashtags including RIP Twitter and Twitter down were also trending, as were others encouraging users to switch to other platforms.